Hello everyone, it's Michael from Blue Sky Bio. In this tutorial video, I'm going to show how to create windows in the surgical guides. I'm using version 4.9.4 of the Blue Sky Plan software. I'm going to demonstrate the functionality first using the wizard and then in normal advanced mode. And of course, if you need help or you'd like to save time with treatment planning and or creating the surgical guide or to outsource the entire case, go ahead and click on Lab Pronto and place your order via the Lab Pronto system. Okay, I'm going to start by clicking on implant planning and surgical guides. Usually when I demonstrate the wizard functionality, I go through explaining how to use it, but now we're just going to fly through it quickly to get to the part of creating the windows. Okay, I've selected my import type, my surgical kit, clicking on OK. Selected the DICOMs. Grabbing the yellow borders to limit the field of view. Now what's really great is the nerves are being detected completely automatically. Okay, here we can see the nerves. Of course, we should confirm and any modifications can be done as well. Going to click on Next, selecting the relevant model. And again, the alignment is being done automatically. We should always confirm the alignment in our 2D views. We're not going to get into details on how to do that right now. Modifications can be made if necessary. I'm going to click on Next. At this point, I'm selecting the relevant crown, the relevant implant, and small, medium, or large is the general tooth size. I'll be able to resize as well once it's placed. Go ahead and click on OK. And now I'm going to click in the area where I would like the crown to be placed. And now I will go ahead and fine-tune the placement of the crown. And we see that the implant is moving together with the crown at this step, at this stage. Okay, and let's say for now, for the purpose of this video, this is sufficient. Go ahead and click on Next. At this point, we're able to fine-tune the placement of the implant, so we could go ahead and move the implants as we like. Once we're done with that, we go ahead and click on Next. Oh, by the way, if you want to resize the implant, you could right-click and choose Replace, then select the size that you'd like to replace to. The software has detected a collision between the brown software guide tube that we have here and the model. I'm going to allow the software to resolve the collisions. It has resolved the collisions and the drill report has been updated as well. At this point, we're going to go ahead and draw the surgical guide curve. Holding down the Shift key, left clicking to mark those dots. When I want to rotate, I let go of the Shift key and just hold with my left mouse button. Okay, go back to the beginning, connect the dots. Now is the time that I'm able to first place the windows. So at this point, I'm able to right click and choose Add Window. I could also do this after the surgical guide has been created. I'll show both ways of doing this. At this point, I could use the spheres, the nodes, to resize the box. The box represents where the window is going to be created. I could use the widget to move and or rotate. And once I have my window created, we should pay attention not to create any part of the surgical guide that's too thin. So let's move this up a bit and let's move it over a bit. Okay, and then I could click Next. And here's our surgical guide with the window created. Now, if I didn't create a window yet, or I want to add a window, super easy, right click and choose Add Window. And here you have another box. Let's resize that, rotate it using the rings, move it over using the arrows, check the positioning. And here we are. Now we have a lot more functionality as well. You could right click and choose Duplicate, and then left click where you want to put the duplicate. And now we have another window that we've placed. Some people like having arched type surgical guides, so you could do that now with the windows as well. You can also right click and you have options here to hide. You have options to duplicate, enter size. If you want to make it a very particular width, height, or depth, you could go ahead and just put in the value and then click OK. So we have all these different options here. Once we're done making the modifications, adding the windows, removing the windows, we could remove a window as well. Here, we could click remove. Now it's going to create the surgical guide based on the windows that we have currently. So I'm going to click recreate guide with windows. And here's our updated modified surgical guide. Now when you're using the wizard just saves the latest or the last surgical guide you created, so that when you save it or export it or send it for printing, you're using the last, most recent surgical guide. In normal or advanced, if you create multiple versions of the surgical guides, you'll have all of them showing up for you in the surfaces panel. At this point, I'm going to X out of the wizard, and let's take a look at windows in the normal mode. So I'm going to go to surfaces, turn off my CT, guide with windows. I'm going to delete the guide, and let's go to our guide panel. Let's clear the curve from before. Okay, clear curve. Now I could go ahead and click draw curve, and just like in the wizard, I could go ahead and draw the surgical guide curve. Okay, and just like in the wizard, we could go ahead and right click and click add window. We still have our previous windows from before, so we could show how to delete a window by clicking remove. This is the window that we just added. Okay, and we could go ahead and create windows of various shapes and sizes. Now if we click create surgical guide, okay, now this is the result. It looks a little bit wacky, and we could see why that happened. Show windows, and it's because the block, the window, wasn't long enough and it wasn't high enough. So if we make the modification, and let's show something else here as well. Let's move this over, and we're actually going to create a flat plane at the end of the surgical guide. So if we wanted to print vertically, then we'll have a flat cut that we could do that for. Let's extend this some more. Okay, very good. Let's click create surgical guide. Okay, and here we see our surgical guide. And as I mentioned earlier, in normal or advanced, you could go to surfaces and you could see the different variations in the surface panel of the surgical guide that you created. Now we can also see that in the surfaces panel, we have this cut button. So if we have a piece of the surgical guide that for whatever reason, we don't want it to be there, let's hide the implant for now as well. We could go ahead, there we go. We could go ahead and we could select the relevant surface, and we could use the cut functionality. We could go ahead and lasso the relevant part, and we could cut it away. Okay, so you could do that with any STL surface, and you could use the cut functionality. Click it again to turn it off. And lastly, if we switch back to model editing, where we could edit all of our models, then we could go ahead and take advantage of the smoothing tools that we have here. We also have some functionality to close holes. We're not going to get into that now, but smoothing brush, let's say here we could smooth out the surgical guide if we want to. Okay, so we could use a smoothing tool that we could add or remove material. We have different diameters and different strengths, so you could play around with this functionality, but you could use the editing tools as well, the smoothing tools as well, to add a finish to your surgical guide. You could, of course, emboss or engrave text as well. We're not going to get into that functionality at this time. Okay, thank you very much.